Where's your daughter?
She's got a...
First of all, I want to talk about what we were talking about before we came on the show. I think it's fascinating what you're doing, and good for you. Tell me what you're doing as a professor.
At the University of the Ozarks, Bob, as you know, I have a class. It's a senior level accounting class. I've got 12 senior accounting majors at the University of the Ozarks. The chancellor sat down with me and talked to me, and he said, "What would you like to do?" I said, "I'd love to teach them SBA lending." So he gave me the, I guess, bandwidth to develop a class that doesn't have a textbook. Guess what the textbook is, Bob? It's the SOP 5010 7.1. And
which you can purchase on Amazon for $39.95. Go ahead.
Yes. So the students are reading the SOP cover to cover, because I've done that numerous times as each version comes out. And I think it's important for a good SBA lender to have read the SOP from beginning to end. In addition to that, twice a week for an hour and a half, they're getting to listen to me talk about different topics like equity injection, use of proceeds, collateral coverage, but all the basics of SBA lending. And they get quizzed throughout the semester. Bob, they prepare forms. They've prepared the 1919, the 4506C. They prepared the sample 770, but I've given them SBA forms that they have to complete on a fictitious business and turn in to me. These kids are not only senior accounting majors, but they've had more than 40 hours of training on SBA lending. They've read the SOP 5010 7.1 from cover to cover. Guys, these would be great new employees for any SBA lending team. In fact, Bob, at the Mid-America Lenders Conference, I came away with 2 banks who have committed to potentially offering a position to these students.
These are on a virtual basis?
No, so it's kind of, I'm going to call it a hybrid, Bob. When I was at Mid-America Lenders Conference, I was away, so they got video lectures from me.
No, I'm sorry. The jobs. Are the jobs, do they have to move, or can they do it from Arkansas?
Some are on site, some are on site, some are, telework. But these students are from throughout the United States. In fact, 2 of the offers, one's in Texas, one's in New Mexico. And I actually have students from Texas and New Mexico.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Class.
Okay, great. Well, that's awesome,
Yeah.
Liz. I think that's a great story. And how much, what would they come into these institutions as? What type of position, and how much are they going to get paid?
Well, Bob, I think they would make a great underwriter. They could potentially be a closer, or they could be a junior level BDO, and hopefully their salaries will be somewhere in the ballpark of $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And I would just state, any other financial institutions out there that are looking for new SBA team members, don't hesitate to email me, because I know my students would love to talk to you.
I think that's a great story, Lance.
No, Bob. No, I'm your recruiter. There's no recruiting fee from Lance's recruiting service for SBA team members.
Well, while we're waiting for Anna to try to corral Delaney was on. She looked great, and then she just froze, and so we may have to do this. Anyway. Also, I am looking to hire a summer intern. If you know someone who wants to write, I'm primarily looking for a writer, researcher. Shoot me an email to bob@coleman.com. That's how we've hired our last 3 people. Katie was an intern. Delaney started as an intern, and Anna was an intern. Anna actually was from an SBDC out of Michigan. She graduated from college. She moved to West Virginia, and she's now with us full-time, as her official title is the Director of Marketing. So we love to train and promote from within. All right, well, Lance, let's get into this. Let's start with the Vietnam story. I find this fascinating. And if you can pull up that slide, Anna, there we go. What's interesting about this, Lance, is that she started working as a stall owner in Saigon, and
Yeah.
she built her way up, and she ended up owning a bank. And the takeaway on this, Lance, is 93% of the loans through the conglomerate of banks that she was able to put together were to her controlled entities, and they're fraudulent. Lance, if you're a regulator and you go in and you see 93% of a bank's portfolio loans are fraudulent, what are you thinking?
I, I think it's not a good thing, Bob. Obviously, well, then there's regulations with FDIC and the OCC in terms of what kind of lending can be done to bank employees, obviously, or people affiliated with the bank. Obviously, that's not the case here, but this is also proof, Bob, that fraud is not just a United States thing. It's throughout the country. I think the most curious thing I have, Bob, is what is 304 trillion dong?
Oh, it's 12.5 billion US.
Okay, 12.5 billion.
Billion. See, right in the title.
Oh,
See how we
yeah.
do this, Lance, is we put the title up there and then we.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. But
Just no problem.
I again, lending to related entities, it's just like SBA's affiliation rules, trying to limit the number of loans to an individual borrower, and borrowers attempt to dance around and circumvent the affiliation rule, but lenders are tasked with determining whether the borrower has affiliates and how that might impact how many SBA loans they can have and what dollar amount SBA loan they can have.
The rules are very specific. The most that one individual can own in a bank was 5%, and she was able to get around that. And it's unfortunate, again, what's happening on that. And you read the article, and she was sentenced to death, but the article did couch it by saying, well, it's sort of what they're really trying to do is to get her to turn on the government officials that allowed this bribery, this fraud to continue. So we'll.
It looks like Delaney might be here.
And we'll. Oh, Delaney, you blipped and you blipped out. Well, let's go.
Yes,
we can hear you now, Delaney. Go ahead and give it a shot. Otherwise, we're going to cut you off. Try it.
Yes, I'm sincerely sorry, everybody. I did not.
Oh, it's not your fault.
Connection issues. Now you'll have to catch me up. Where exactly are we?
We started with Vietnam. Let's go to Boston. Talk about Boston.
All right, sounds good to me. Now this is quite a name here. I'll give it a shot. Stavros Papantani. Antonio, you know what? Never mind. I'm not giving it
let's move on.
He was indicted for 2 counts of wire fraud for applying for EIDL loan presentations.
All right, I'm gonna make a decision, Delaney. This isn't gonna work. So we're gonna cut Delaney, unfortunately, because of the thing. So Lance, it's you and I muddle through this, and we'll try to do it. Another EIDL loan, pizzerias, again, another person who did EIDL. But what's interesting on this one was when the government comes after you, they come after you. And this one, they also charge him with forced labor. I've never seen that before in a fraud case, other than when they go after these individuals, they go after them with a fine-tooth comb, and if there's anything shady anywhere else, they're going to be charged.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. The interesting thing about this fraud case, this pizzeria owner, the pizza place had actually closed. If the lender in this case, which was SBA, had checked the Secretary of State's website, the Secretary of State in Massachusetts had actually canceled their LLC. And he then followed up and applied for idle loans after the fact that the business was closed and the LLC was canceled, and was able to get $499,000 in financing on a business. I'm sorry, was not closed, but a business that he had sold earlier in the year. He had a pizza place, he sold it, and he still applied for PPP loans and, I'm sorry, idle loans for that closed business. So I believe SBA's 19-point data check that they used in the second round probably, well, this was the second round loan. I'm sorry, Bob.
Okay.
But it should have caught this, that it was not a legitimate entity. It also appears that he manipulated information in his application, but getting a loan, an idle loan on a closed business, certainly is a example of some of the fraud we've seen in PPP and idle.
Yeah. Move ahead to
good.
interesting.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about this is he obviously was paying his idle loan payments, Bob, because they would have caught the fraud if the loan defaulted. It sounds like his utilization of non-documented workers and his abuse of those alleged abuse, Anna, or is it the real deal? But his abuse of employees kind of put him out there, and then when they started investigating, they realized that he had committed fraud on an idle loan.
I want to switch gears and talk about Funding Circle. There was an interesting article in Banking Dive. I didn't cover it editorially, made the decision because this is all from, you don't have a slide on this, Anna. It was all from Funding Circle. So this is from Funding Circle. It's not from SBA. But they're saying SBA's, this is what Funding Circle is saying. And again, the backstory, Funding Circle is one of the three entities that received a license. The CEO, Lisa Jacobs, they're an English-based company, and they said the U.S. market has become problematic and they're pulling their U.S. lending. This was after they got the license. And by the way, they've never approved an SBA 7A loan. They're one of the fintech companies. Obviously, the situation has given a lot of interest to Congress, and SBA is trying to figure out. Well, this is what Funding Circle says. This is not SBA. Obviously, has no reason to comment on this other than through congressional testimony. But what it says, Funding Circle will never sell solely the SBLC license. I don't know what that means, Lance. Solely sell, but they're saying that we're not going to do that. It's never on the table. In the possible scenario of change in control, any transaction regarding the U.S. would be to a well-capitalized U.S. domiciled entity willing to provide the capital to enable Funding Circle USA to continue making SBA loans. That's a lot of tap dancing, Lance. They're doing this backwards. What you're supposed to do is go to the SBA and say, hey, I have the capital, and give us the license. Here they've got the license, and now they're saying, okay, now we're going to go out and get the capital. And they're saying SBA signed off on this. You don't have to make a comment on that. I said, I'm just going to say that scenario seems very iffy to me, and SBA can't be happy with what's going on here.
No, I don't think they are, Bob. I think they issued a license to somebody that they thought would go out, develop an organization that would provide SBA financing. And, it was a big discussion amongst SBA lenders whether or not Funding Circle would be able to sell the SBLC license. I think SBA is smart enough to have had provisions in that arrangement.
There's no way politically SBA would do that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
not
like
gonna
giving
happen.
someone a $5 million gift. So that's why they're
Yeah.
saying, no, we're not going to sell the license. And it's interesting. It says the funding circle says no, the SBA is going to allow them to make the loans, and they've been green lighted. The green light comes despite staunch opposition. This is the problem that funding circle and SBA has now. There was opposition to this before this is even granted, of giving 3 additional licenses out there, and now that they did. This is what the opposition is saying could have occurred, and the funding circle says that the existing 7A lenders have absolutely no incentive to allow more lenders into the program, and any more lenders in the program would have taken a portion of the pie. So they're saying they're simply being they don't want competition. That's why they didn't want him in there. But again, this was I don't know. It's a fascinating story, and the rationale that funding circle has, I don't think is going to fly, Lance.
No, I think it's interesting, the SBLC license choices. SBA made 2 extremely non-controversial choices in Alaska Growth and Arkansas Capital Corporation, and then one that has turned out to be quite controversial.
I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to say not even non-controversial, but I'm going to say good choices. Those entities have been very specific about what they're going to be doing to them, for what their underserved communities are. They have the funding. They have a track record.
Yeah.
They've been around, and I think the choice of those 2 were very positive for the granting of the additional license and for SBA. Those were very wise choices, and they chose well-established companies who know what they're doing, who've made loans. Funding circle hasn't made a loan. Go ahead.
To give you an example, Bob, Arkansas Capital Corporation, I have known and worked with them since about 1985, Bob. And the current CEO of Arkansas Capital Corporation, I actually used to take 504 deals to Arkansas Capital Corporation in the 80s and 90s, and 7A deals as well. But the current CEO's father was the CEO at the time that I was taking. They've been in the SBA lending business for an extremely long time. They're a well-established organization, and they do serve underserved markets.
They're in the rural market, and Alaska's in the Native American market.
Yeah, our friends up in Alaska are the same way. They've been around for a long time. They've been involved in SBA lending, and these were 2 excellent choices.
Yeah, in getting capital to rural American Main Street and to rural Native American communities to start small businesses, to develop economic growth. I mean, that time and time again, that is a excellent use of taxpayer funds. So anyway, hey, real quick, Lance, we're doing a webinar next Wednesday on loan broker fees. The reason why we're bringing this about is we still get questions over and over. What is permissible? What can we charge? The SOP changes. And we're just going to go through and be very, very specific on what the lender needs to do, what the lender has in terms of responsibility of making sure the loan brokers are charging the right fees. We get a lot of questions from loan brokers of what can we do, and we want to do it right. And the lender does have a responsibility on making sure, because the lender's approving the fees that the loan broker receives. Correct, Lance?
That's absolutely true, Bob. It's also important for you as a lender because, we can charge a packaging fee, but to understand the new rules in the SOP 5010 7.1 on what you can charge as a packaging fee, when you have to report it, when you don't. So very important information for any SBA participant lender, not only ones that deal with brokers, but ones that charge a packaging fee in-house for their SBA loan.
We had our first meeting of the Coleman SBA loan broker table. We're going to meet every Thursday at noon Eastern. We bring lenders and brokers together and we talk about transactions. And we had our first meeting Thursday. It was awesome. Anna's producing that. And next week, we're going to be talking about franchise and what do brokers and what do lenders need to do with franchises, and documenting now that we're in a world where franchise is actually deleted from the 5010. I'm embellishing there, Lance, but there's very few times now you mentioned franchise, right?
No, that's exactly right. And they've taken away the franchise registry, which was a resource that lenders could look at to determine if a franchise was eligible from an affiliation perspective in SBA's eyes. So now we have to do that due diligence ourselves.
One other program note, we have decided to put on hiatus Main Street Monday. We will do that show as breaking news develops, Lance. We will continue to offer our weekly show on Fraud Friday. But for right now, Main Street Monday is on hiatus. Lance, we can always choose to revisit that decision, but we're gonna go dark for a while.
Yeah, that's. I think that it is more exciting, Bob, when we have hot breaking news and we can bring out a show. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, very good. Hey, thank you all for joining us today. Have a nice weekend. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Have a great weekend.
Or on the webinar.